My name's David Mills, and I would like to answer a question here on YouTube that is very frequently posed to me in my email. The question being, how do I write a book and, more importantly, get it published? Now, I myself have authored 4 books, all of which were published in a variety of ways. So I do have some knowledge of the subject. In 2004, I self-published a volume, which of the 23,000 self-published books in 2004 was the number 3 best-selling. My current book, called Atheist Universe, is published by a traditional publisher. It's in all the Barnes & Nobles, Borders all over the United States. It's been translated now into 4 foreign languages. So what I want to do is to go over the 3 basic ways that you might go about getting your own book published. The first way is the traditional way, where you contact a book publisher. You write a query letter, you say you have a book on this subject, you maybe send a sample chapter, you might go through a literary agent. You usually fart around for a year or 2 trying to find a publisher. You might get a contract. It's maybe another year until your book actually comes out. You might get an advance on the book, which might be enough to purchase a decent used car, but that's about it. So what I want to do is go over the advantages and disadvantages of all the types of publishing. Now that's the traditional type. The advantage, of course, of the traditional type is that it is, for some reason, considered more prestigious. Now, I don't know why that is, because, and keep in mind that I myself have had books, both books that I submitted to traditional publishers were published. But in spite of that fact, I want to communicate to you that the fact that a publisher accepts your book does not mean that you're a good writer, that you know anything about your subject. It means nothing. It's not prestigious. The only thing it means is that the publisher, correctly or incorrectly, thought he could sell some copies of your book and make a profit. It says nothing about the merit of your work. I have no doubt that if William Shakespeare today sent in his plays to a publisher, he would receive a note back saying that, "Dear Mr. Shakespeare, you have promised, but your plays do not meet our marketing goals at this time. We wish you luck elsewhere." Publishers would sell a turd Scotch tape to the end of a popsicle stick if they thought that would make them money. That is all they care about. That is all that they care about. The advantage of a traditional publisher, other than the alleged prestige, is that they do have an established means of distribution. They will put it in the bookstores for you. They will put it online on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Borders online, and take care of that for you. So that is an advantage. The second type of publication, one which I've also done, is to entirely finance the project yourself. That you are the publisher. You go to a printer with your manuscript, you pay for the printing, you pay for the binding of the books, everything. It's up to you entirely. Now, the advantage of that is that you essentially keep 100% of the profit, minus the taxes that you might owe at the end of the year. And so that is an advantage. The main disadvantage of self-publishing is that you usually have no means of distribution. I can remember back in 1978, I self-published a book, and I had this room, in fact, stacked with boxes and boxes and boxes of the book, and no means really of distribution. Now, if you happen to be the pastor of a mega church that has 25 or 30,000 members, and you have a way of selling these books directly to somebody without any distributor, without any middleman, then this would be the way to go. Because, as I said, you could keep 100% of the profit. But unless you have an established means of distribution, you do not want to self-publish in this way. So that would be a disadvantage. Plus, you would have to have the upfront costs of probably $4,000 to $5,000 at least to get your book into print, even as a paperback. Now, the third way that you could go about getting your book published is the one that I'm going to recommend for almost 100% of the people, including myself, and that is the new print-on-demand technology, which is to say that the actual book is not manufactured until an order is received. Now let's say, for example, that in one day Amazon gets 10 orders for your book. Someone at the end of the day literally sits at the end of a machine, hits a few buttons, and the other end of the machine pops out 10 copies of your book. Now, I know this sounds unlikely, but this is how it's done. Now, the beauty of this is that there's no inventory. You, as the author, do not have to pay any upfront money to get your books published. You don't have to fart around for 2 years with a traditional publisher who's going to keep almost all of the profit anyway. And so you get a far greater percentage of the retail price of the book through the print-on-demand. Now, a question you always get is, well, how much money can I earn? Well, in my case, now I say this with humility, but for 5 years, my last book, Atheist Universe, was in the top 1/10 of 1% of all Amazon sales, meaning that my book sold more than 999 out of 1,000 books on Amazon. And even to this day, it is in the top 2% of Amazon sales. So am I rich? Am I making this little video in a mansion in Beverly Hills? No. Even if you achieve a great degree of success in selling your books, you might have enough money to pay your utility bills every month. Now, the people you hear about who earn millions of dollars in an advance or in royalties are perhaps a former president of the United States, or just literally a 1 in 10 million. And that's not you, and that's not me. So if you're not a former president of the United States, if you're not the Queen of England, if you're not John Bon Jovi, you're not going to get rich from selling your book, even if it sells very, very well. My last book was a national bestseller and has been translated into several foreign languages, and as I said, it's barely enough to pay the utility bills. So you want to have another means of income. Now, if you had 8 or 10 books, all of which sold very well, then you could make a very good living just from book royalties. But you don't want to quit your job as a professor or a teacher or a fireman or whatever it is that you do. Now, there are several types of print-on-demand. There are 2 companies that I would very much recommend to you. One is called Ex Libris, which is a part of Random House. I used Ex Libris in 2004 with very good results. Another company is called iUniverse. Now, both iUniverse and Ex Libris charge you a fee to set up the book initially. They will put it into a format that can be used to print the copies of the book, or that Amazon can use to sell the electronic Kindle version. Now, they do charge a fee. What I would recommend instead of that is to go directly to the Amazon Create Space program. It's called Create Space, one word. They do not charge an upfront fee as of August 2010, which is when I'm making this video. They do not charge an upfront fee. You get to keep 70% of the retail price of the book, of the electronic version, slightly less on the printed version. So that's far, far greater than you do with a traditional publisher. I want to give you an example of a traditional publisher. Ulysses Press, which has published my last book, the best-selling book that I've ever had. On Amazon, it sells for $11 plus shipping and handling, altogether about $15 that it costs the customer. Now, of that $15, I receive a whopping 88 cents. 88 cents out of $15. So that's practically nothing. So you pay a price as the author for the alleged prestige of going to a traditional publisher. They often call self-publishing vanity publishing. But really, it's the traditional publishers that's the vanity, because in order to have the alleged prestige of going to the bookstores and the traditional publishers, you essentially give away 100% of your royalties, or close thereto. So my recommendation for you is to use the Amazon Create Space program. Sell your books online at Amazon. They will do the Kindle versions, which will give you 70% of the profit. Now, the disadvantage to that is that your book will not be in the brick and mortar bookstores. Amazon, or it will be on Amazon, but not in Barnes and Noble, in the stores, Borders. Any traditional book and mortar bookstore will not have that. That's the price you'll have to pay. Sadly, however, the brick and mortar bookstores are disappearing. Barnes and Noble is in trouble, and as of June 2010, Amazon announced, and my own observation concurs with this, that electronic copies of books are now selling more than hardcover copies of books. So for better or worse, things are changing. I personally prefer to hold a printed book in my hand, but this is not the way the market's going. Electronic copies of the book are books of the future, so I would suggest that you go in that direction. Use the Amazon Create Space program. A couple of final words of advice. One, no matter how you publish your book, whether it's through the traditional means, through self-financing, or through the new print on demand, you are going to have to promote the book. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Again, maybe if you're a former president of the United States, the publisher might have one or two people promote the book for you. But if you're not a former president, you're going to have to do it yourself, no matter who publishes the book. Finally, my advice is this, and this is good advice. When your book is out and people are buying it and writing reviews, good reviews, bad reviews, always remember that neither your harshest critics nor your most devoted fans are telling you the truth about your ability.